Welcome to Empirical Animal Podcast Experiment. My name is Piotr, and today I sit down with my partner, fellow creative artist, and the founder of Black Girl Swim Club, Marsha Nsiah. The main theme of the conversation is creativity with a spiritual twist, but we also talk about what it's like to be both partners and collaborators. Marsha reflects on why she's now reconnecting with art. She talks about her love for music and how she's overcoming the fear of putting herself out there. We also get into her experience of following Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way and how it's shaping the way she documents her process, experiments with different art forms, and approaches content creation. So let's get started. And today it's a special one because I'm sitting here with my partner, Marsha Nsiah, partner in life and creative partner. I got this idea that on the podcast, I want to start hosting couples that are also creative partners. So I thought that the best place to start is to start with us. So I'd like to discuss with you subjects like creativity, to talk about the artist's way, in general self-expression, and reintroducing creativity to our lives, because there's quite a bit of similarities, and obviously the background is, I guess I could say, reestablishing our personal brand online, which for me is through this podcast, and you're also now back to YouTube.
I'm back.
That's right. So I would like to talk about that experience and a bunch more. So perhaps we may want to start with the internet, effectively, the background to this story.
What do you mean by the history of the internet, or like my early days using dial-up internet or something?
So this morning when I was journaling, I had a bunch of reflections on, how my kind of creative journey started, and how until I got the access to internet in my teens. The breakthrough moment when I started self-educating myself. Like, I got access to all these resources. Why don't you tell me about your experiences with internet over the time, and how it has informed your creativity, how it's perhaps opened you up to new influences?
So like my earliest memories of the internet, like after we had dial-up and stuff like that, was music videos. Like, I would religiously watch music videos, and I can't remember the channels now. And we were speaking about this the other day, we didn't have Sky or things like that. Then, like, I really got into things like SBTV. So he would film, Jamal Edwards, he's not around anymore, but he would film rappers on the street, and those rappers and artists would always get really big. Like, so I always felt like I was in the know when I was watching those videos. And then I'm skipping a little bit because it's a bit blurry. I would just watch shows and music videos and download music. Like, that's what I used to do with the internet. Anyway, when I was in college in Brighton, I moved from like normal AS levels to film, and I was really interested in music, and I was always bringing those references in, and I was specifically wanting to create day in the lives, not to film music videos, but I just liked how creative they were.
All the social media platforms, they kind of became the main window onto the world.
It's not like broadcasting on the news or the TV and we're just watching on a Saturday night. Everyone has their own channel. So even now, the stuff that you're saying is reminding me. So Brighton was like a massive time for me and this was a period when we were, so how old was I? Like 15 or something. And we left our London school and was moving to Brighton, but I wasn't in school yet. So there was this period of summer when I was just on the internet, and that's when I was really on YouTube. And there was things so I was really into this movement in LA called jerking movement. It was like dancing. It was so good. It was just dance moves. They had like, style, fashion, music that they would produce. It was so good. I was obsessed. It's not that they were celebrities, but and it sounds weird saying it, but if you knew, you knew. Like, so there was these different dance gangs, and I had my favorites, and then you have it's like a boy band, and then you have your favorites. And they would use things like Justin TV. So that was like the first streaming thing. So I knew about YouTube at the time, but there was this thing called Justin TV. I don't know if you know it.
No, I never heard about that.
It was just streaming, like going live basically. So that was, anyway, for me, this is big internet. Like this was peak internet stuff for me. And it was chat rooms because everyone would gather and you would sort of, remember people's names, and it was sort of a community.
But that brings another aspect, right? The community, which we're going to get into further. Which, for instance, for me, when in the times when I was building musical instruments, like that was the first time probably that I really felt like a part of some kind of strange underground movement, super geeky knowledge about how to make these guitars.
But did you feel like a geek when you were doing it, or was it just, I'm just doing it, like this is just what I do, and now you look back, you're like, oh, that was so geeky and underground? Or did you feel like, this is geeky? Like, do you know what I mean?
I mean, this without casting any judgment on that. I mean,
yeah, I don't think there's any
like,
judgment.
Obviously, I think that like geeky to me means
cool. For me, it does anyway. Like if you're really interested in something,
in a positive way. That basically you have inside knowledge on a very niche subject. How much do you think that these early days were influenced the aesthetics and the type of the videos that you're creating? I mean, I'm thinking specifically about vlogs.
Yeah, heavily. Like, I lived on the internet. Like, I have been watching vlogs for years. So, yeah. But I was watching them before they became a business. So, in my short life, they, having a social media job was not a thing. So, I was, watching people who are massive OGs now, regarded as OGs. They were just in their bathroom doing their hair stuff. So, I started in the beauty realm, really. I think I can't speak for there's many niches on the industries on the internet. But I was a teenage girl. I cared about beauty and hair and all this kind of stuff. So that's the world I entered into. And yeah, so talking to the camera and stuff and doing vlogging, it's normal to me basically, because that's what I saw. YouTube is a search engine, right? As in. And we're suggested videos now, but you go on there for a purpose. So whether you regard beauty as important, it is important. As in, girls are going on there to learn how to do makeup, like how to do the eyeliner. I learned how to do that on YouTube, and so and now it's a big thing. You've got big makeup artists, and they've got their brands, like so that even the makeup brushes I use, those ladies started doing things on YouTube, or so it's like whether you're going on there to learn gaming or how to draw or something, as in it was lifestyle stuff for me. That was what I was interested in. And then I was watching entertainment, so the jerking stuff, and then I would learn how to do the moves from it, but it wasn't necessarily an instructional video. It was just watching someone, just the same way how you learn guitar, wherever you're watching it, zooming in, slowing down, seeing how they're fretting. Yeah, it was an educational experience.
Got it. And I mean, maybe this is the good place to introduce Black Girls Swim Club. So talking specifically about the social media platforms where you had some success.
I guess that really jumps ahead, because this was, the YouTube world was years ago, and I was late to TikTok, but I was also late. I was late to all of the things, by the way. Like, YouTube is accessible, so I went on it, but and also it's because of the phone that I had. So Instagram, for example, I was very late. Facebook, I only got that when I moved to Brighton and I wanted to catch up with my friends and we had a computer. TikTok, even, I judged it at first. I was like, oh, that's just kids dancing. It just looks stupid. I completely judged it. But then I went on and I was trying different things, just trying to see what works and doing a bit of talking stuff. And, I was in, what they call it, 400 views jail, 200 views jail, where you can't get ahead. Anyway, and then I had this, it wasn't that sudden. It sort of culminated over a month or so, the idea to learn to swim, and you were part of it, not in a major way, but part of it. A few experiences I had during that time, I met someone at the time who was an avid swimmer, and they just swam every day in the sea. Also, so at the time I was working at a leisure centre, and I was working very closely with the kids who are learning to swim, and seeing like the few black kids in their experience, like trying to put on a hat and it wasn't working. And then occasionally there would be like a black girl who's my age, and she, you know, she was an adult. She was in my age, right? And I couldn't swim. And she was telling me, oh, I'm going for my lessons. And she was, yeah, and I really thought, oh, this is like, why don't I make a thing of this? And then I met you and you were swimming all the time. I don't think I thought about it too much. I think it's just something I sort of just went for. So I just, as I did, just turned on my camera to, you know, to film on TikTok and just told my story that I'm an adult, I'm this age and I can't swim. And I know that lots of other black girls and for black people in general in the UK also don't swim. Like, you know, you go to the pool, you can look around and see who's here. In the beach, you can see who's getting in the water and who's not. Yeah, so I said I'm going to do something about it. At first I called it a school, but it was more like a social club. And that was that. And it took off. And funny enough, actually, that day, when I did that video, we went out on a date. And I didn't look at my phone. And then when I got home, or after I left you, I was popping off. I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah.
I remember that time. So considering that I've been working with video as the dominant medium for like 5-6 years or whatever it's been, it was basically by watching your interactions with other people through social media platform TikTok and Instagram, it became very obvious that the way that I'm creating my videos has essentially limited reach, and that equally being overly concerned about just the technical aspect is a big limitation. And was your perspective on like relatability of the content and how actually simpler content like filmed with handheld with your phone without any fancy cameras, lenses, lights is often more relatable because it's, I guess, I want to use the word honest, but there is something about it which kind of makes easier to connect.
Yeah, I think honest is the right word. Like even with vlogging, there is a term like raw vlogs where it's not high production value.
So specifically, I'm talking about this raw aspect, which makes the content somehow more accessible. Like it strikes some emotions that are not necessarily that easy to access through film that is staged, curated.
I don't think it's conscious because if I think of like I said, I've been watching vlogs for many years, the whole range, like high production stuff, and then the raw vlogs that I'm talking about. And I think it's more like personality. Like, I think that's what something you said earlier. So instead of just like being a formal on a news thing and we're just broadcasting, we're just speaking to you, it kind of feels like you're talking to a friend. It's parasocial, right? You feel like they're your friend. I think maybe it has maybe more implications for the person who's filming. I could just talk, it's just quite simple. I was walking around my room, it was just, I don't know, it was just free. Whereas this setup that we've got, for example, there's a lot to consider. And I only had to just think about that. I think audiences have an opinion on, or they think they have an opinion on whether they like something that's glossy and high production or something that's raw. But I think it's just, do they like the content of what you're speaking about, what you're providing? In my case with the Black Girl Swim Club, it transcended social media. Like social media was just the medium to get the message out. It was something, it was meeting a cultural need. And this is how I was delivering the service to them, if that makes sense. So the women or whatever doing the raw vlogs, or I hate calling it that, but rough and ready vlogs, I don't think I realized it was like that. I just liked them. I just liked their vibe. They were funny or they were comforting or whatever you want to call it. The reason why whenever people watch vlogs, I don't think I factored that in. I don't know. You notice it now. It's like, so these days I'm seeing, some man in a forest or something. And that's a bit, it's not that it's weird, but it does stand out against someone in their room or something. But if I like what they're saying, then I don't think I'm thinking about that.
So I want to explore further the Black Girl Swim Club in a moment. But first, I'd like to touch on the concept of personal brand, which, I have to credit you for introducing me to. you see, in many ways, like this podcast is my first attempt to actually step to the other side of the camera, to become visible as a person with, his identity, his worldview, who has something to say, who had a series of experiences that, shaped him, and share these experiences with other people, and, have these interactions, which, I probably value more than anything. So what was personal brand, and how is that you started kind of creating various brands that you had over the time, and where you're heading with it right now?
I just want to preface that I'm not a pro and I feel like I'm still working it out, but I think it also relates to the question you were asking just now about the raw vlogs or high production value, because I guess that's also a brand. Like if you do, blurry kind of, or, lo-fi, whatever kind of, that's a brand. I think it's, tone of voice, like how you come across, how people think of you or relate to you. Are you like in the luxury sector? Are you like cheap? Like, for example, if you're in travel or something, or even in beauty, is it like super high-end brands, or is it like high street brands? Or
so the simplest explanation of personal brand I heard is that this everything that people think of you when you leave the room. If you like to say something about your personal approach to it, and how you're kind of curating the mood board which is attached to it, and set of values.
Again, I'm not a pro, and admittedly, I don't really know what people think of me. My first conscious effort to have a sort of brand when I first joined Instagram, I would say, and my handle was called Hair Tutorial because I wanted it to be about hair, and specifically Afro hair. And then that goes back to YouTube because I was learning about how to take care of my Afro hair on there. So all this curly girl stuff that everybody talks about now, that it started with the black American women. So it wasn't like a white thing. Like it was about Afro hair, my kind of Afro hair. I just want to preface that because it's important. And it was about not seeing myself. So the whole thing of not seeing darker skinned women with my kind of hair. It's called type 4, but this is not accurate, whatever. But it just means like, hardcore Afro hair. It's not very represented in media, mainstream media. This is very obvious. And I wanted to be what I wanted to see, if that makes sense. So I was doing tutorials on how to do my hair because I had been doing my own hair for a very long time. So since I want to say year 4 and year 3 even, and I don't know how old that is, but very young basically. My mum gave up. She was like, oh, because we're twins, me and my sister, and she was like, I can't do this anymore. 2 heads of lots of hair. So then I just learned, how to do it. So anyway, yeah, I just started posting lots about hair, and I was doing a few shoots and things. Actually, no. Can we backtrack?
Yeah,
this is a lie. This is a lie. No, my first account was creative account. It was a creative account. That's a lie. Marlu brand was my first account. And I was posting my art stuff. I was posting photography. Oh no, we've got to backtrack. And then I created Hair Tutorial. And then it became my main account.
But was it that also before you were present in the content you were creating, or were you exclusively sharing your art?
No, I wasn't really in it. I mean, I'd have a few mirror selfies with a friend or so, but I remember the first post I did, and remember I joined late because of the phone I had. I couldn't, you need the technology to access the social media. I don't know, I like cars a lot, so I was taking pictures of lots of classic cars. I like those. What else was I doing? And I was doing, interior design at the time, so just like little sketches and drawings and things. I went to Fashion Week, one fashion show, and I took some photos there. And then I was assisting as well. I was assisting Dean. He was doing beauty and fashion photography at the time. And Lydiana. So I met her doing makeup modeling, super random time. And she just put out a thing, oh, who wants to assist me on a photo shoot? And I really wanted to, because I really wanted to get into that world. I thought I wanted to be a photographer. So yeah, I was posting that stuff behind the scenes, but I was never really in it. Yeah, and then I started putting myself in it when I did Hair Tutorial, which was my hair, showing myself, doing my hair, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, that's when I started building up not following, because it wasn't big, but all the people that I was following me. We all liked, black hair stuff. and that's what it was.
That was the point where you started being recognizable.
Yes and no-ish. As in, so if I would go to events or something, they would know, oh, you're editorial or something. But I really felt like, I hate saying it, but the swim club, that was the thing that took off, because I'd never had that much traction, I would say. Yeah.
Because as a side note, because I think that I've been, even more reluctant to engage with, social media platforms. Like I've been barely publishing anything. Even though my work is that of visual nature, and honestly, any kind of content, where I would see the maker next to their work, like I was taking it as narcissistic. I had this concept that it's the work that has to speak for itself, but obviously personal brand. Some may don't like it, especially people coming from the art world, because brand sounds like something commercial, something that has to sell, and that you don't want to productize yourself. But essentially, what it means is that your story is key. That's what really gives the unique aspect to your work.
Do you mean with like identity politics stuff these days? Like, oh, I'm black, or I'm a single mom, or is that what you mean by identity?
I think that like we're being flooded with information, right? And basically, art of any form is one another type of information present out there. So I think that what gives the unique flavor to it is actually if you have the capacity also to color it with a little bit of background, right? Like just explain where it comes from, because what changes dramatically in my perception is that the work becomes more approachable, more relatable, because you see the person behind it. It's like being able to see a human behind the work is really valuable, because we also seek connection. When I was making musical instruments, and people were asking me this strange question, which was like, why am I doing this stuff?
Why do you think it was a strange question?
Well, so what I was finding strange about it is that to me it sounded as if that was something so weird that it's almost not worth the trouble of making it. That was when I started noticing that bringing up a little bit of the background story was actually helping communicate why you're making this stuff. And so you're actually helping people who have no experience with these medium, with this craft, with art of any sort, to understand it.
So you think, because my thinking, like when you told me that I thought was cool, is I don't, it's not that I think it's pointless, but I do think it takes a certain personality to want to make something when you could just buy it, because it's not, I don't want to say normal, but it's not the convention, because it seems like you're still confused as to why people are asking you that. But I don't think it's a weird question, and I don't know, I can't speak for them, but I don't think it's that they thought it was weird. It's just not conventional. It's like, that is a lot of effort. So like what does it do for you? Do you know what I mean? It's like, why? It's like me wanting to build a table instead of just buying one.
Yes, but you see, but that's why I have refrained my approach to this kind of work, and why I started, recognizing the value of documenting the process of making something. Simply because if that's the first question that comes to your mind, then probably it's worthwhile to dedicate some attention to create resources which actually answer that question. So what would you say that at this point is the core of your personal brand?
I feel like I don't really know how to answer that question, but I would say my focus, if I answers it, is self-expression. Not that it never was, because that was always there. Like, you can't help but be expressing yourself in whatever you do, but because I feel like art is a selfish thing. Like, I think, so that's what I'm doing now, as in I want to go back. Well, I say go back. I always liked art activities, but I never considered I could be an artist. I always thought that was for someone else or something, even though I always admired it. So I always thought I had to do it. We've spoken about this before, do the service thing or something. Like, I whether it's interior design or something which I thought I wanted to do. So yeah, just pure expression really, and I would say beating my insecurities. I think that's a huge thing, as in, so we're talking about, I don't know, the zeitgeist and stuff at the moment, and I think, all this therapy speak and all this, people are becoming more aware of that psychology stuff. I think that's part of it as well, like knowing, generational cycles, that's it. Stuff like that, like I just want to break my blocks or my habits, and as in that these are things that get in the way of anything that we create, but especially art. I don't know if that answers the question, but before I felt like it was very much service-based. It was still, authentic to me. So whether it was the spring, which was like the beauty, ethical stuff for Black women again, and that was an extension of Editorial, which was my own personal thing. But this art stuff, I mean, I know more than anyone that art is beneficial. It's like a product or something. I don't know. It's like, it's emotionally beneficial, but I have my insecurities to get over about putting my work out because it doesn't feel immediately, what's the word, functional. I don't know if that answers your question. Getting over my fear that I have to be functional to be valid or something. And I think that gets a bit spiritual, which I know we're going to get onto.
Yeah. I mean, probably also makes sense to make a clear point that personal brand is like very close to identity. That could be a different label. There are some boundaries, right? So because this is the outward facing identity, probably we will place some ramification about how much we want to share and how much we want to reserve for the personal life. So I think this would be good place to move to our experience with Julius Cameron's book Artist's Way, and how that is benefiting this process of kind of unblocking yourself and releasing the inner artist that has been lying dormant.
So just explain how it's been going.
Yeah, and so your personal experience with it so far, and how it kind of slots into this this moment in time, in particular, right, which is full of changes.
Yeah, I'm finding it good. So as I'm doing a vlog about it, I came across the book. No. I came across the book ages ago, and I had it on my list of many books, which I still have to get for ages. And then I saw it in the Brixton House. I was like, oh, and then I got a chance to read it and see what it was about. And I thought, well, this is great. And I only got to week 2 and didn't continue, whatever. Anyway, 3 years later, I'm back, and it's super relevant to, as I was just saying, I want to free myself and share what I think I'm here to share and create what I think I'm here to create. And so I would say the stuff I'm battling with now with the Artist's Way is we have a few set things you have to do, like the morning pages and the artist dates. But if perfectionism is one of my blocks, which it is, then I think, oh, I haven't done this and someone's going to mark me down or something. I don't know. But it's good, basically.
So I have a copy of this book for quite a while. I mean, I definitely, you get it first, and then
don't try and change the story.
That's right. That's how it was. So it kind of resurfaced on one shoot I did. So I was interviewing this photographer called Roman Manfredi, who specifically named Artist's Way as the kind of gateway into becoming an artist.
Was it like not an artist before and became an artist, or going back to it?
Yes, exactly. So going from not having anything to do with arts to committing it and making it a career. had a look at the book, and I discovered that this time around I actually paid attention to the spiritual component. Probably, I think before I didn't have the capacity really to understand what it was about, and it just sounded.
When you say before, like how long ago?
Well, when I first got the book, so it would be 2 years ago or
But
something
you
like
got
that.
the book when I got the book.
I think so. So it must have been like 2 years ago. The massive thing from it for me were the morning pages. So I started journaling, and I think it's been now 2 solid years that I'm journaling, and it's been incredible. But I never expanded beyond that point. So now, like, it's fourth week, and definitely it's really rewarding, I would say. And
In what way for you?
it really feels that something is clicking. So for me, the main thing, I mean, the podcast has been in the making, well, conceptually for over a year and a half. So I wouldn't credit starting this project to the book, but music definitely is making its return. Yeah, so talking about reconnecting with creativity and finding new ways of self-expression, how has it been for you? So maybe since I brought up the music, that will be, I think, a great anecdote from your story. How through Krungbin and digging into the interviews, you kind of found out the backstory, the band's backstory, and got inspired by Laura's introduction to the music, and eventually got yourself this nice bass.
Well, I think it
So
actually
playing.
goes beyond that. 'Cause remember, I had the clarinet. Again, it's like, I kept talking about before the phone. I didn't grow up with money, right? So I used to, because I love The Simpsons, I used to want to play saxophone, but, my mom couldn't afford it. So again, I always loved music, like really, I don't, like, music is just my pure passion, really. I love it. But it's just about accessibility. Anyway, I don't know how I got onto clarinet. I always loved clarinet though, like in
Yeah,
scores and things.
Yeah, good point. How's that start?
Because I just loved the way it sounded. I just thought, I think I always wanted to do something a little bit different. I thought, what's a bit different? But I always loved it. I love the way it sounds. I think it sounds so cute. I call things cute. Anyway, that again was a bit inaccessible. You got me 2 lessons. They were great. They were fun. But also, it felt really noisy. I was living in a shared house at the time, and blowing that, I felt like I was disturbing everyone. And, you have to have this perfect embouchure and all this kind of stuff. And it's not, you can't really teach yourself that. Like, I felt like you had to have the lessons, and that was expensive. Anyway, you know how that went. It stayed in the case for a long time. And then I took it back because I was renting it. And then I don't know how, I'd known of Crombing for a while, but I never really paid attention to them. Okay, so I think the first time I heard their music was the silly reels, especially those of people dancing and they're like doing that with the words. I don't know if you ever saw those. There was a song that I don't know which, Maria Tambien or something, people using that song. And then again, remember what I said about TikTok? I thought it was a stupid thing. Everyone's just dancing and doing stupid things. So I associated that song with just silly dances. Anyway, I don't know, I wish I remembered the song that I heard that I took them seriously, but I just started looking into them. And because I love musicians anyway, I love a good interview and digging deep on people. And I don't know, I just thought Laura was cool. And then I looked into her story, listened to some interviews, and how she, learned it within 6 months. Obviously she learned a bit more than that. And anyway, I thought that was cool. And then I thought, and also that's not, I always love bass, like in music, that's the thing that I like. Like I remember actually, I mentioned Dean before. We were doing a beauty shoot, and this time I wasn't assisting, I was in it. And, it wasn't really hitting, like it wasn't really, he wasn't very comfortable. And they said, do you want some music on? I said, yeah. And I put some Travis Scott, and I always want bass, like I just love bass, right? So, but again, I never considered it could be something. So that's what I mean about, sorry, I hope this makes sense. Laura, I felt like, oh, I can do it. Like I think that's when it clicked for me, because I never thought I could do it. Like, I just thought, oh, I like this music. I like music in general. I like this. But I didn't think I could participate. I thought I just had to enjoy it until I heard her story, and it seemed quite accessible. Like, oh, Mark just got her bass, a secondhand bass from, what was it? Pawn shop. Then he was just teaching her. I was like, oh, so you can just do it. And so then I just got it. So then I went crazy. I go down my rabbit holes because I get really into things. Watching so many videos. I just get really, basically I get really obsessed when I like something. So I was obsessed. I was watching all the content, following all the people on YouTube, and then we went shopping. And we found a nice one in Croydon. And that was the beginning of that. Oh, and then also, because your guitar has always been around, and guitar strings and bass strings are not the same, obviously. So I was picking up yours, trying to like learn techniques and things, but it's not the same, is it? I was so eager, basically. That was that.
And, that was extremely inspiring for me, and reminded me that I had the guitar lying around and haven't touched it in years. So yeah, it's a big breakthrough moment for both of us, I think.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about like your inspirations, in terms of visual arts, what are the artists? I mean, I watched your latest video.
My latest vlog.
Precisely, and you were naming a couple of artists. Where would you like to bring up this story?
So yeah, I mean, I like a few, like a lot of people, but the guys I mentioned in the video, and that also was to do with the artist's way, and so I wrote many people down, but I picked this contemporary artist called Jordi Kerwick, Basquiat, and Jean de Buffet, and as I was explaining in the video, the thing that tied them together for me that I'm really drawn to was just the playful, like other people might call it primitive, which I hate, or like childish instead of childlike, whatever. But again, I think I also use the word accessibility. Like, it made it seem accessible to me. I don't know, like I grew up doing art at school and stuff like that. And I'm not like you. I just don't think I'm that, I don't want to say good, but like I don't care about classical painting necessarily. Like I don't want to, that's not what was drawing me in to do it.
So let's talk about then self-expression through this medium. Like,
I'm actually more well versed in ceramics, really. So at school we did clay, like we made stuff. This painting thing is new. Like when I was doing my college course, that's the paints I've got now are the paints I had from back then, like 10 years ago now. But we weren't really painting like that. But I've always been comfortable making 3D things. And that's, again, it's accessibility and like having, we've got the pottery place around the corner, but then paying for membership to do that, whatever, it's a block. But for me, so if we can backtrack a little bit, this creative resurgence for me is kind of started around the time I turned 30, which was about 5 months ago now, because I hated my job. Because I don't want to be employed, whatever. And I always want to be creative and be paid to do that, make a living off of that. And it was about, I just thought, what do I want to do in this season of my life? Like, I want to be myself. I want to go back to I felt like I've said this, if you're cosplaying as someone else, I don't know, when I'm doing these, sitting behind a computer doing an office job or something, I just feel like, what am I doing? Like, I don't think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I want to be making stuff. So you got me that wheel workshop ceramics thing, and that was like, I was like, yeah, like, I don't know, that really sparked something for me. It really did. I got back and I was ecstatic, wasn't I? I was so.
But even the place is just around the corner.
Yeah,
right?
it's great. And I've known about that for a long, as you know, because I always used to come through here before we moved here, and I always wanted to go in there anyway. Things happen as they're supposed to happen, and I was like, oh my God, the feeling again of just making stuff and learning from someone that I want to learn from, to be learning skills that I want to be learning, of how to, express myself in this new medium or this new language. So anyway, painting is a departure for me, and it's definitely part of me, as I said, like, I don't know, letting perfectionism go, and it's supposed to look like this, and it's supposed to be this, or this is what good art is, this is what bad art is, whatever. So I told you I get really, I hope I'm making sense and you're keeping up. I told you I get really obsessed with things and go down rabbit holes. So I was, doing so much research about artists again, because I thought to myself, I don't really know artists. I was like, I know of like some names and stuff like that, but I don't really know their stories and stuff like that. So I started doing that. And at first I was looking at sculptures, and this Barbara Hepworth, maybe this guy called Luke Hand, maybe he was her apprentice, sculptures and potters and stuff like that. So I don't really know anything about those guys. And then I was like looking at color, and I thought, I don't have to restrict myself to this medium. Let's look at painters, and because I thought painting is not for me. I thought that's for somebody else, like somebody else can do that. So I just sort of, until that point, I had just thought, oh, that's just something, I don't know, that's another high art or something, that's not for me. Anyway, so I started looking at that and looking at how people are mark making and whatever, and how I can incorporate that into my practice. So now it's completely experimental. And so we do this thing where I call them intuitive drawings. And that's one thing I've always done as a child. Like I've always done that. So I'm sort of bringing that into what I do now.
Let's slightly roll back to Artist's Way and explore the spiritual component like embedded in the creativity. So for me, really the first time that I actually heard this idea that art is something that's coming through you rather than it's something that you own was when I was filming with Roger Robinson. So those were his words in a poetry workshop. So he was still emphasizing that you need to develop the skills which allow you to actually translate this channel transmission. But obviously this is very very interesting angle. And right now, I hear this from more and more people. Like the previous conversation I had with Rudy, like we were talking about what music means to him, and he said that that's exactly what he's aiming for, to be channeling this music.
It kind of relates back to the social media and the TikToks. So that I've kind of always been into that realm of stuff like that. So when I was making those TikToks and putting the Black Girl Swim Club videos out, I did see it as channeling, because we're not there yet, but I would put myself in that sort of high state, and then I would make the content. So it's not, you might not think it's the same, but for me it is the same. Like putting myself in a position to be able to receive something, say it right, make it, post at the right time, whatever. That is what I was doing. And it was conscious, it wasn't unconscious, like I knew what I was doing.
Would you like to say something about like your approach to spirituality? Because like so many things that I have to credit you for, but it's been also introduction to spirituality, which like growing up in Poland, I was confronted with religion as at any step, but then this is something very different. Like we're not talking here about worship of any sort.
So I grew up going to church as well. I have a funny relationship with religion. Some of my family are religious and some of them aren't. But I was always, and because my mum and my uncle and stuff weren't religious, or maybe, I don't know if I'm just inquisitive anyway, I was always questioning. I'm just me, I'm always asking questions. You can't get away from my questioning. So I was just always at church like, oh, like, really? Like, what does this mean? Like, I don't just accept things. I just not me. So anyway, besides that, I hate the word woo-woo, but I accept it. I am one of those people. But I do think, and some people don't like to hear this, that we are talking about the same thing. I think people just have different names or different archetypes or different stories or names or prophets or this person. But I think we're talking about the same energy.
Let me interject. I like one of my favorite books, and that definitely clarified to me what spirituality is, which is Awareness by Anthony de Mello. So he was speaking from the position of a Jesuit priest, that religion originally was intended to lead a person towards spirituality.
I thought it was lead to social control.
I mean that's what it's become, right? So that's the problem, that religion at some point completely became like self-referential, right? Cutting off the component of the spirituality. Okay, so let's try to define what spirituality
I don't want to
is for us.
define it. I don't know. I think I feel a bit uneasy about that. For me, I think it's personal, and so I can only talk from my perspective, kind of thing. I do think we are all talking about the same thing, and before, so I also spoke about this in my video. I used to be triggered by the talk of God or this religion, but actually, I think there are common archetypes in all the religions or all the beliefs, and even as I'm learning about archetypes in Jung and all that kind of stuff, I'm starting to see it now. For me, it's just the truth. What resonates with me? What's running everything? I don't know, this thing. I don't know. I guess if you want to call it Allah or God or however you want to personify it, I don't like to do that, but so I do use the word universe or source, whatever. But so my thinking is, I don't know about defining it, but my thing, I don't think we're just, like, I'm not an atheist. I don't think we're going to die and that's it. I do think there's a bigger thing that's running everything. I just think everything's too intelligent. Like, how can there not be something? There has to be a helping hand. I think there has to be something. So the whole thing about we're like eternal beings, or we're part of the eternal, and that we're points of consciousness now. Like, I kind of like that idea that that's what's going on. And I also like the idea that I chose my body and I chose my parents and I chose the time I was born. And I like that idea. I don't know. Maybe it's because I want some control. I don't know.
I think that for me, it's like all my life, like it seems like there's like, you know, like a second button to it, like that there is something. So I like intuitively it was sensing something, and probably like the key moments was quiet time in nature, which, you know, is quite standard condition for you know, just contemplating the state of being. And yeah, and there was something magical in these moments, but you know, I was never really able to take it any further.
Could I say something about that? Because I think that's quite magical. I realized this a long time ago, but I also heard I don't know, I hear some of my teachers that online teachers talking about this. I feel like people usually turn to spirituality or God in tragedy. Whereas you're saying, and I feel like this is my impression of you, that you live a dreamy life, and that it's nice that you're living in, that you're just like, it's like Newton or something, that you're just there and, oh, there must be more to life. But I think commonly, and I don't know if this was the case for me, I don't know, I have to think about it, but I don't know if people get really sick or someone dies or something and then they're looking for answers. They're like, there has to be something, I need help. Like, something bigger than me must be there. And I think that's the common way that people get into it, I think. So this is helping me get over my insecurity. So in the beginning of The Artist's Way, she talks about common reasons why artists block themselves. And one of them that resonates with me is thinking that it's, what's the word? Not narcissistic, but selfish or self-concerned. Like, oh, I don't know, like, that's frivolous, that's not important. Like, who cares what you have to say? And this is one of my personal blocks anyway, you know, me worrying that my voice doesn't matter, what I have to say doesn't matter, even though I feel like I've got a lot to contribute to the world. So she talks about how it's God, she uses the terminology God, but source, God, universe, whatever. The creator created you, and you creating is like, I wouldn't, not honoring God, but like, you're part of it. You're part of the whole thing. We're all creating, and it kind of, I don't know, made me feel like I have a place in the bigger picture or something.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, another, I think, beautiful thing which may maybe even making it for me make more sense is that she speaks that this expression of life force. So simply being alive kind of naturally pushes you toward, you know, making things happen as an expression of being alive. You know, blocking this process is, you know, going against your nature. This is a really interesting thread for myself, where, you know, you kind of start recognizing that. I think she even speaks of it at some point, that soon you realize that it's actually harder not to make things than to actually accept that this is this is a part of what being human is, right? And it can take many forms. So I think this also important to take this notion that it doesn't have to be painting, sculpting. Equally, it's conversation like this one, cooking, pretty much anything which is intentional and requires some sort of action taking.
So I just thought, no, I've had this thought before, and I've heard it before. If you're into the chakras and stuff like that, and I think it's the solar plexus or whatever, one of the sexual energy one, which is also the creative energy one, and we can all understand it's not just human, it's all creatures on the earth, that their main drive is to just keep on reproducing and creating life. So it just makes me think that creating is natural, as in just like creating a baby or a love of life is natural. That's just what people do, humans, animals do. Creating art is natural. I don't know, it's just human. It's just normal. Yeah, I don't know. I just had a thought.
So how about we touch now on the component of creativity that is playfulness. The creative process should feel for you. Should it feel like work? Should it be playful? Should it be the balance of the two?
So I don't know what it should feel like, but what I'm trying to attain, as I mentioned before, is not that I should be doing this, or because that's part of what I'm trying to free myself from, that someone is controlling me, or that I have to answer to someone. It's like I'm trying. We spoke about channeling and God and source, but I want to call it a co-creation, like my higher self, my true self's co-creation with source, and we're just making this thing together, that like letting that through. So for me, I guess it should feel effortless and like we're just flowing, like you're not really, it's not the logical analytical brain, like it's just happening, and then maybe I can look back and be like, oh, okay, this is what I made. It's not the same brain waves, I don't think. And playfulness, I think, yeah, there's serious things in life. I'm very aware of those things, but I think the essence of life is just joy and play and laughter and the good stuff, really. So, yeah, I'm just a proponent of those things. Mm-hmm. Also, for my, not beliefs, but like how I think energy works and all this kind of stuff, I think you have more to offer. So yeah, I understand the whole thing about toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing and all that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about that. But I do think when you're empowered and energized and in alignment with the source, whatever, that's when you can make a change. That's when you can help people. And I'm going to go on a tangent here, but that's what I think artists are here to do, or like usher in a new vision. Because there's stuff going on, there's dark stuff going on, but the only way we can bring in something new is if we can imagine it, if we can. So you have to be in a state of non-stress and creativity to be able to conceive of that idea and then birth the idea. So I think it's powerful. I don't think it's bypassing. I think it's, maybe that's what people want you to think. I don't know what that's all about, but I think there's something. It's not burying your head in the sand, basically. I think it's very powerful if you're doing it consciously.
And how about we now sort of go back to the aspect of community, because obviously you're publishing your work, you seek feedback, and at this point, is it of an interest of yours
to have community?
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess my first foray into that was with the Black Girl Swim Club. In a way, yeah, kind of cultivating a sort of community. It never really manifested as I imagined it to. I mean, we did meet up in person and were doing the swimming lessons, and that was real. But yeah, so now I'm focusing on art and expressing myself truly and all this kind of stuff. I would like to find a community in that as well, so of other artists, basically. Yeah, and so you asked me about personal branding and all this kind of stuff before, and I said I don't feel like an expert because I had some conscious idea of how I was. I don't want to say it just happened. I studied, like I did, like I was part of events and things, learning how to do this community thing in events. So I did have a backing there, and now I feel like I'm doing it all over again. And I don't want to say that I'm struggling, but it's not the same. I feel like marketing your art is not quite the same as marketing a product or a service that's functional, if that makes sense. So I'm sort of struggling with that, but the essence is the same. Like, you're still providing value, but I'm trying to learn the what is the essence of the value when it comes to art and entertainment. And I think it's more emotional. I mean, everything's emotional, but I think it's more emotional. I don't know if that makes sense. So anyway, I do want to cultivate community around other people doing the same thing, basically. So even with bass and stuff, yes, I'll need to get a community so I don't feel alone, but also so you can learn from each other and share your experiences, and yeah.
And do you think that an online community can be equally like fulfilling, being part of an online community as opposed to like in-person local?
I don't know that it's equally
Community.
fulfilling, but I think it's valid. And again, I'm an internet girl. It's not weird for me. I understand the internet, and I think you can connect with people wherever they are and whatever time zone they're in. But I guess it's not the same as, typing on the screen, as we know, is not the same as hearing my inflections or intonations or seeing my body language or, oxytocin, touch, and all this kind of stuff. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the same, but I think it's fine and valid, yeah.
Because my thinking is that people that who create work that I appreciate, that them living in different places, the only solution to connect is that remote. It can lead to actual collaborations and creating work together, and often that's really the only avenue, because lots of creatives, they are so immersed into the process of creating that they're just too busy, and that's the only place where you can meet them.
Although one thing I'm learning with my stuff is that you can't be too busy to make, like, at least if you want to sell your work and get it out there, networking and being outside and socializing has to be part of your practice. That's just a bit of advice there.
But then to sort of balance it out, what about rest? What about dedicating some quiet time? So would you like to share something about your practices and way to kind of balance yourself, ground yourself?
So it's funny you're asking that, because I'm in a stressful time, and I don't support hustle culture, but I'm a very anxious person, and I, in my head, ruminate a lot, and I'm doing it a lot at the moment. Because I've left my job and that, and I'm really wanting to commit. As I said, after turn 30, I really want to commit to myself and not try. I just want to do it. But I'm, have my blocks. Anyway, with that in mind, I think I haven't done it in a while, but meditation is imperative. I don't know why I don't do it more often, but I don't know, it just makes everything okay. And again, we spoke about the spirituality and all this kind of stuff. I'm tapping into the source. Like, that's what I'm doing when I meditate. I'm stop, like, efforting my human self and just let myself coordinate with the source that can see the bird's eye view of what's going on. That's what happens when I meditate, and I don't know why I don't do it more often. Tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. I love that. That's so big for me. And I have been doing that. So if I'm really angry or stressed or worried or something, or fearful, or I just want to amp up a more positive feeling, and I do that. Journaling, very good for me. I can really get myself into, not a trance, but like into a sort of state. And so as I told you, I don't journal like most people. I mean, with morning pages and the artist way, I've been doing that and just writing whatever comes to mind. But usually the way I do journaling or writing is, I call it energy work, because I hate using the word manifest, because we're manifesting whether we consciously know it or not. But if I'm trying to create a reality, I will write about it in a repetitive way so that it becomes real. Like, that's the thing that I do. That's important for me. And I guess it's natural because I'm a ruminator anyway, so it kind of works the way my brain works. Music is such a big thing for me. It's like medicine. Like, I have to call it that. It completely changes my state. Like, there's always some album or some artist that I'm obsessed with, and I'm really obsessive. I've said this already. Like, if I like something, I will listen to it for months, for weeks, whatever. So that's big for me if I want to change my state. Like even when I was working from home here, the difference in how I feel by the end of the day, if I had music on in the background to just working in silence is big. So yeah, the energy of that, having music. The sun. Am I just going on here? But the sun being out,
please go.
which is why I want us to live somewhere hot. I want to live here too, but like I don't like the winter, and I'm just a different person when the sun's out. This is big for me. Yeah, I don't know what else. Making art. Also, I just want to add, I'm not making enough. Like at the moment, because I'm back on YouTube and I'm making content, I'm sort of worrying about that, but it's kind of sidetracking me. But I noticed after I started getting my, paper out and making stuff, I was happy. I was way happier. I don't know. I can't explain it. I didn't have worries. So that's my medicine, and I need to do that more. Just make stuff.
So as the last point, rounding up the conversation, I would like to touch on our creative partnership and the infinite amount of inspiration that I found in simply being around you, right? So it brought the music back in my life. Opened my eyes to really the opportunities that online platforms are creating, and I think that. It's been specifically, seeing the content you are creating for the Black Girl Swim Club that, I mean, that might have been really the first time that I've seen someone who is in the position of the influencer, kind of we could say, that I knew in person and that I knew so close. So I think that was necessary to make the switch and actually start seeing that as a possible avenue for myself, and eventually led to kickstarting this podcast. The question for you is: do you think that it adds something unique to the dynamics of our relationship? Adds like an additional dimension to it, a flavor of sorts that we can inspire each other, where I'm not, questioning the reasons. Like it's obvious for me that you want to create sculptures, painting. Like it's no strange to me, and I would never, undervalue engaging with creativity. But how is it for you?
Can I be honest?
Please.
So, you said these lovely words about me inspiring you to get back to art, but when I first met you and I saw your previous posts, I thought, oh, you had a very rich artistic life before me. And I think I've alluded to this, but to you before, but I guess I find it intimidating because I think you're really good. And so there's the whole, I don't think of good art and bad. I don't think that. I think you either like it or you don't. But people can have technical proficiencies, and I think you're very good. But, and I've said this to you before, I feel like you let that side of you go. And you told me a few stories which I thought was, like I've said this before, but they sold you to me. Like I thought you was so cool. Like when you told me about your Berlin story and your comics or the architectural drawings, I'm not sure if you know, but that left a big impression on me of who I thought you were. Like I thought, like you're super resourceful, but you're also talented. Like that told me who you were, and I thought that was really inspiring. And so my thing about getting back into art is, so I am a bit insecure about people's opinions, which I'm trying to free myself from. But I am also, we live together, and it's a big space, but it's one space, and you always see my work, and I don't want you to judge it. I don't want anyone to judge it. That's why I'd rather be alone. I don't want people to have opinions, so I worry about what you think sometimes, whatever. And as you know, I've always wanted to work with you on something and create something. And we do those drawings, train drawings that we do. We should share those. But yeah, anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but I like your work, and yeah.
Well, I mean, it's obviously I know all that, and thank you for bringing this up. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to touch on what you mentioned, like me disowning the artistry, and I think that when I moved to London, I needed to prove to myself that I can be resourceful, create some sort of career, and for a while, being a professional offering video services became my identity, and it was a relief for a while. But after
Relief in what way?
well, I think that being an artist can be confusing because it's not a well-defined way of living. But at the same time, it was just my broken perspective on myself, where I was simply identifying myself with the work that I was creating, and because that work wasn't paying for itself, I assume that it doesn't have any validity. So now it's changing, and aside from that, I'm also expanding on the way of expressing myself. And for instance, like having conversation like this, hosting conversation like this, it is an art form for me, which is a new path, something that, openly speaking, I'm learning as I go, and yeah, it's an exciting experiment. So as final thoughts, feedback and advice, like in podcasts that you listen to, is like what was that you appreciate? What is that makes it worthwhile listening to?
I mostly listen to business ones, but I also listen to music ones. There was once upon a time I was introduced to these comedy ones called Reply All. that was a completely different thing. But for the ones I normally listen to, I want to get an insight into that world that I'm trying to get into, whether it's business or how to be a successful musician or successful artist. So yeah, getting insight into how they started, the challenges that they faced, and how I could potentially replicate it for myself. Also, I appreciate feeling like I don't know, it's the parasocial thing again, but like you're hanging out with some mates or something. I like when there's like when it's not too formal and people are laughing and you feel like you're involved in the friendship, which is a bit weird maybe, but I don't know.
No,
It's real.
I perfectly understand that. I mean, I've been definitely initially heavily influenced by the podcast, which have more of a lecture style, but then you remember the animated series Midnight Gospel, the one done by Duncan Trussell. Like the moment that I discovered that essentially the voiceover has been edited content of live conversation was incredible. And
yeah, I thought that was cool. I love that.
so I think that's the direction where I'd like to take.
That would be cool.
Take this podcast.
That would be really good. That would be cool.
Right?
Yeah, I know. I just think that's really cool. Like, ooh.
Well, maybe one day. So now rounding up. Any final thoughts? Where would you like to direct the audience? Where to find your work?
So @Editorial is my most active account on Instagram. I've started posting on my art account again, which is, I think it's Marsha. Is it Marsha Art? I don't know. You'll find it on Editorial. But my I'm back to YouTube, and that's Marsha Nsiah. So MarshaNsiah. And through all of those accounts, you can find more about Black Girl Swim Club. And hopefully by the time this podcast goes out, my art website will be out. And that will just be marshansiah.com.
And through your website, purchasing your artworks will be possible. And we're talking paintings, drawings, ceramics.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. We'll get this. Thank you.
Thanks.
This was Marsha Nsiah on Empirical Animal Podcast Experiment. The links to her website and social media pages can be found below. And I see you in 2 weeks in the next episode. Thanks for watching.